Welcome to the next session, the session 2 of Healthy Heart, Healthy Life Pune series. I am Dr. Neelkant Karandikar, Chief Cardiologist at the Heart Clinic, Mukundnagar, and Alpha Diagnostic Center, Hirabag Chowk, Tilak Road, Pune. I am interventional cardiologist at the Ruby Hall Clinic, Dinanath Mangeshkar Hospital, and Sahyadri Hospital, where I do procedures like angiography, angioplasty, pacemaker implantation, etc. The post of Honorary Professor Emeritus in Cardiology has been conferred on me by the government of Maharashtra. I'm probably the only one in Pune at the BJ Government Medical College and Sassoon Hospitals, Pune. I'm the first gold medalist of the Bombay, now Mumbai University at the DM Cardiology examination. We have seen in the previous session what a wonderful organ our heart is. Starts beating before we are born and continues to beat non-stop till our very end. The function of the heart is to pump blood, and it pumps around 10,000 liters of blood every day. And what is the main thing that it does? The arteries that come out of the heart, it is shown here the main artery aorta and the branches going down and up to the lower and upper parts of the body. They carry the nutrients, the oxygen, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and very important, immune cells and platelets, which protect our body from infections, etc., increase our immunity. And the waste products that are generated in the various organs through metabolism are carried by the veins back to the heart. The veins are shown here in blue, and from the lower part of the body and the upper part of the body, the impure blood comes to the right side of the heart. We know very well that the nutrients that are contained in the food that we eat are absorbed from the gut and they enter the bloodstream, which goes to the heart. And the waste products generated in the organs which enter the blood are filtered out by the kidneys. They come into the urine and down from the ureters into the urinary bladder, which is in the lower part of our abdomen, and it is thrown out in the urethra outside the body. Yes, urine. The focus today is going to be on the function of our lungs. As we just said, the blood from the upper part and the lower part of the body comes to the heart into the chamber called the right atrium, the right upper chamber, which is a collecting chamber. The blood stays here for a while and then descends down into the ventricle, which is a muscular chamber, which pumps it into the artery called the pulmonary artery, which carries the blood to the left and to the right lung. The heart and the two lungs by its sides are like the brother and its two dear sisters. The overview of the lungs are the organs of respiration. They're located in the chest, one on each side of the heart, and the function of the lungs is to oxygenate the blood coming from the heart to it. They help by bringing air and putting it in close contact with the blood that needs oxygen. When we breathe, the air enters the nose, comes down into the throat, then the larynx, which is our voice box, then down into the trachea, which is the windpipe, and its various branches called bronchi, which divide and subdivide, finally entering small air sacs called alveoli. These parts are again shown here. The larynx, which is our voice box, the trachea or the windpipe, the various branches which finally from primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi, that is what they are called. They end into the bronchioles, and which finally enter into the alveolar duct, and which brings air into the small air sacs in the lung called alveoli. Here it is shown beautifully that whereas air comes into the alveoli containing oxygen, the blood vessels called capillaries are in very close contact with this alveoli coming from the right heart side, and there is a very thin layer of cells between these two. Here it is shown that the air is there in the alveoli, it contains oxygen, and through this thin layer of cells which separates it from the capillary, the oxygen enters the blood in the capillaries, and the carbon dioxide from the capillaries is thrown into the air in the alveoli. Once the blood is oxygenated or full of oxygen, it comes to the capillaries and then the venules, pulmonary veins, which carry the blood to the left side of the heart. The average total lung capacity of an adult human is about 6 liters of air. If the two lungs were like two large balloons, as shown here, the transfer of oxygen and carbon dioxide would not have been so efficient. It would have been much less efficient. Why? Because the surface area which the balloon would offer would be much less than what is actually the fact in the lung. When God created the lungs, he must have had in his mind the pomegranate, which and the seeds which are inside. If you carefully study these seeds, they have 12 sides, and that shape is called dodecahedron. According to scientists, the shape of the alveoli is also like a dodecahedron, like the seeds in a pomegranate. Alveoli have 12 sides, hence called dodecahedron. But some scientists feel that the alveoli are round in shape, like balloons, small balloons, whatever it is. They increase the surface area of the, in the lung, which is in contact with the capillaries of the blood. The Creator has created small sacs of air called alveoli in the lungs. Each human lung contains about 240 to 300 million alveoli. So both lungs will contain 480 to 600 million alveoli. Alveoli have perfect shape to occupy minimal space called dodecahedron. The shape is called dodecahedron. This markedly increases the surface area for contact between alveoli and capillaries for gas exchange. Thus, because of the alveoli, the surface area offered inside the lung uh, to come into contact with the capillaries is 75 to 100 meter squares, which is very, very large. The next very interesting fact is about our respiration is diaphragm. Not all alveoli are open at one time, the air sacs that we talked about. Variable number of alveoli are in a collapsed condition, deflated condition. Deep inspiration, where the diaphragm descends down, can open these alveoli and push air into them. Here we can see that in inspiration, the air enters the nose, comes down to the throat, larynx, and then into the lungs. And this happens because the diaphragm contracts and descends down. Here in the other picture is shown the position of the diaphragm at the end of expiration. And when the diaphragm contracts and comes down, the air gets sucked in and the thoracic cavity expands. The external intercostal muscles also contribute somewhat to this inspiration. In expiration, the air is thrown out and the thoracic cavity reduces. External intercostal muscles relax. But the main reason the expiration takes place is that because the diaphragm relaxes and moves up. The shape of the diaphragm is like a parachute. The parachute, as we know, is what the people, soldiers, etc., who jump out of planes, air diving, they carry the parachute so that they safely land on the ground. This diaphragm separates the organs of the chest, which are the lungs, from the organs in the abdomen or the stomach area, which include the stomach, the intestines, the liver, spleen, kidneys, etc. In this video, you will see that in inspiration, diaphragm comes down, and expiration, it goes up. And you will say, Doctor, why are you telling us all this very basic information? It is because later on this information is going to be very useful for us when we discuss things like pranayam. The very basic principle in pranayam is the maximum contraction of diaphragm and maximum descent of the diaphragm, is the basis of pranayam, which increases the amount of air sucked in, the oxygen sucked in, and actually what is called as abdominal breathing. What does it mean? Abdominal breathing is that when the diaphragm contracts and comes down, the abdomen comes forward, apparently getting bloated up. Air actually does not enter the abdomen. Air enters the thorax, the lungs. But because the abdomen sort of balloons out a little bit, it is called as abdominal breathing. So thank you very much for attending this session. And uh, we have discussed some very basic things which are going to help us in our subsequent sessions. Thank you very much, and definitely do come for the next session also.